Hello, I'm Adolpho Veloso and I'm in the Cinematography podcast. You're going to build a cabin, so you have the privilege to build it the way you want. So it's a lot of studies of what the sun is doing throughout your shoot and how it's going to change and where to place the cabin in a way that's helped in a way, where to place the windows and which types of windows and how that's going to change from week 1 to week 7, because the light changes too. So you need to have all that in mind. That is it's kind of tricky because it's different from just like putting a light outside, for example, that you can do at nighttime, daytime, or any time of the day.
This is Cinepod, the Cinematography podcast, a program about the art, craft, and philosophy of the moving image, presented by Hot Rod Cameras. I'm your host, Ilya Friedman, and today on our program, I interview cinematographer Adolpho Veloso. He just received an Academy Award nomination for his work on the movie Train Dreams. In this episode, you'll learn all about how Train Dreams was shot on a relatively low budget, short schedule, and non-traditional style. A homebrew lighting fixture made to turn light from several candles into one. Changing up shutter angles to alter the viewer's perception, and some unexpected trick shots deployed in the movie. After the interview, stick around for our short ends, our pet obsessions of the week, but first find out what's going on in the world of entertainment in a segment we call Close Focus. Hey Ben, it is time to talk about our Close Focus. What's going on in the world of entertainment?
Well, I wanted to hit on something that we haven't really spoken about, and it's a little bit outside of our purview of cinematography, but I think it's slightly adjacent, which is that the Oscars this year have added a new category, and that is casting director.
Yeah, casting director. That is not something we've ever seen at the Oscars before, and actually, I'm not sure how exactly I would quantify who did the best job casting, or how to even judge that.
Well, the question is always like, the way you would look at it is if you're looking at, say, One Battle After Another, right? Like, did Paul Thomas Anderson approve the cast? Or did Cassandra Kulu-Kundis, who is nominated, did she doesn't go to Paul Thomas Anderson and say, here's your cast. She presents people to Paul Thomas Anderson. And I would argue, and I have worked with a number of casting directors, every one of them has been an amazing experience. I've never had a bad experience with a casting director. And it's a very collaborative give and take between the director and a casting director. So, if you're doing One Battle After Another, my assumption, but I could be way off on this, is that Paul Thomas Anderson's people reached directly out to Leonardo DiCaprio's people long before the casting director was on board, or when the casting director was brought on board. But it was like, we're going after so-and-so. Now, a casting director will ordinarily be the person who will go after whatever talent you're trying to cast in your show. And a casting director also can kind of set you up for success by telling that, the agent of that actor, or by telling the actor directly themselves, by, vouching for you. They, like, on a very basic level, if you're doing something that's, middle budget or lower budget, they will just go out and find out when people are available. But every single casting director I've ever worked with, and I've worked with several, will sit there and brainstorm with you over and over and over again. And they will throw out people who you aren't sure, you're not quite sure. And then you'll wrap your head around and go like, oh my God, that person would be awesome. And sometimes, like I have regretted on the feature I directed, Alien Raiders, John Jackson, who's an amazing casting director, was our casting director. And he kept throwing out Zach Galifianakis to me. And I'm like, the comedian? Really? That guy? My film hadn't been out for 15 minutes before The Hangover made him a megastar. And I feel like a lot of the casting directors know who's coming up, who's
on the cusp, who's got something that's going to break through.
A name that was floated a year ago to me on a project was Jack O'Connell, and my first response was, who's that? And now he's in both Sinners and 28 years later, The Bone Temple. So I feel like casting directors have been unsung heroes forever, for the entirety of our industry, really.
I definitely feel like casting directors, especially for smaller projects, are really the unsung hero because, frankly, without them, sometimes those projects would not exist at all. There would not be a project if that cast didn't come together. There's no other way that movie would get made.
So I want to actually, before we go, I want to list who is nominated for Best Casting Director. So it's Nina Gold for Hamnet, Jennifer Venditti for Marty Supreme, Gabriel Dominguez for The Secret Agent, Francine Meisler for Sinners, and Cassandra Koulakundis for One Battle After Another. And, look at that list and you will see a list of amazingly cast films. So, what I would say when people say well, are they coming up with the casting or are they just suggesting the casting? We have a cinematography podcast. So the director of photography, much like the casting director, is someone who presents a shot to the director or presents lighting, presents an image, and the director can change it. Does that mean that DP didn't do amazing artistry, doesn't deserve to be recognized for what they did, even if the director ultimately is going to walk around and take credit for all the amazing photography in their film? I would say the exact same thing about casting.
Interesting. I can't wait to see what happens because they certainly have really legit nominees here, and maybe there's hope for more categories to be added then. But maybe this has been the biggest oversight. I don't know. Is there another category you think is a big oversight that should have an Oscar category?
Have we added stunts yet?
So we haven't added stunts, I don't believe. No.
Yeah.
But that's a big one. Yeah.
A huge one. I mean, what else aren't we recognizing? I mean, it's like, we recognize the difference between sound design and sound editing, but we're not recognizing stunts. And I think that there's like a weird pressure to make it look like, these actors are really doing their own stunts, but really stunt people, bring us impossible situations, things you would never do to your lead actor. They take enormous risk. Most people in our industry don't take any actual risk with their physical body, but stunt guys do. That's their stunt performers. That's their whole job.
Guess what? I just did a quick search while we were asking this question because it did ring around somewhere in the back of my brain. It's going to become an official Academy Award category in 2028. So in 2 more years.
Yeah. I mean, when we were making Alien Raiders, I remember there was a scene where one of our characters has to have their face slammed into a table. And I'm watching the stunt woman get patted up on her face for that stunt. And I'm thinking, she woke up this morning. If you woke up this morning knowing that someone was going to grab your head and smash your face into a table, no matter how safely it could be done, it would be like the worst day of your life. And this is just their job.
It's just Tuesday. Yep.
Yeah. It's like their job is to get their, whatever horrible thing. And I'm sometimes in awe of watching stunt people and how good they are about positioning their faces so you can't see that they aren't the lead actor by flailing their arms or keeping their head, and it's like they've got acrobatic level control of their body to look like someone who's not acrobatically doing something. And it's a pretty high elevated art form that we haven't acknowledged. But I'm glad that we're looking at casting directors. I'm sure that I'm sure we have some new stuff coming. I mean, do you think we'll have a best AI prompt writer category in the next 5 years?
No.
Okay.
I don't think that one's coming.
All right.
Anyway, well, why don't we get to the interview with Adolpho Veloso for Train Dreams?
Let's do it.
I'm joined now by Adolpho Veloso, the cinematographer of Train Dreams, and Academy Award nominated for your work on that. Congratulations. Welcome to the Cinematography Podcast.
Thank you very much. Nice to be talking to you.
Nice to be talking to you too. This movie was not shot and made like, I would say, a typical Netflix production or even a typical, 30-day feature film. Tell me, where would you like to start? Where do you want to get into this?
It is a Netflix movie, but it wasn't made that way. We actually shot it independently for kind of a small budget. And it is a very small movie, actually, like comparing to all the bigger fishes out there, and especially the movies that are in the award season conversation. We premiered at Sundance last year, so exactly a year ago. And that's where Netflix bought the movie, and they've been doing an amazing job of putting out to the world and making sure a lot of people watch it.
I'm actually up in Portland, Oregon, and I know that this was a Pacific Northwest shot production here. How did you guys end up settling on Spokane, Washington, and shooting out here?
Well, I mean, the non-romantic version of it is that Washington had an excellent tax rebate.
Money, money, money. Yes, exactly. The tax
So it
incentives.
was
Yeah.
the place where we could actually shoot it. But the story, I mean, the movie is based on a Dennis Johnson novel that is set kind of around there, not exactly there, but around there. So it fitted the nature and the locations kind of fitted the world in a way. And we shot all over the state. We had to find like so many different types of locations. We needed like untouched woods, places that felt like human beings haven't had destroyed at all. We needed woods that forests that felt devastated. We needed small cities, bigger cities. We needed so many things that we had to kind of drive all over the state to find everything we needed. And all the locations we shot were amazing and beautiful. It's such a beautiful state, to be honest. It was tricky because obviously you want to go to those locations that feel untouched, and that usually means that you go to very inaccessible places. But at the same time, you need crew to arrive to those places. You need your
Logistics.
camera there, some gear. So it was always about trying to find places that felt really in the middle of nowhere, but with a road right next to it in a way.
Yeah.
Some of the places were harder to get to, some were easier, but most of the film was shot around Spokane, which was great because it's a much better weather than around Seattle. It can be very rainy and wet around Seattle, which is also beautiful because then it's very lush and there's moss and there's a lot of like there's more that feeling of untouched woods around Seattle. So we wanted to go there to shoot some stuff. Most of the trees that are bigger and that feel older are around Seattle, but the hard thing is that most of those places are protected parts, which is great obviously, and but it means that you need to be really cautious of how much gear you're bringing and like how you're shooting to make 100% sure you're not affecting that space and touching that environment at all. So it was about a lot of our cutting and axe work was just like trying to like
Movie magic?
sell the punch, like what are the angles that sell the punch here. That looks like they're cutting this tree, but they're not even touching it. So it was a bit of everything. And then we went to forests that are kind of logging facilities that actually do that to shoot a bit of that too. So it was all over the state. And it's, again, as I said, such a beautiful state.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing up here. And I think that a lot of people don't actually realize how many different looks and how many variations there are in such a relatively compact space. Was it pretty easy for you to get to most of these incredible vistas, incredible places that you did? Or were you really sort of like roughing it, having to pack stuff in to get to those places?
Depends. We had a few, like we shot a few scenes like up in the mountain to get some snow in the movie, and for that was kind of like just a small bag, just the camera basically, like in a few backpacks with like some props and stuff like that. So we had to sometimes be really nimble and go with a smaller footprint and a really small crew. But most of like the bigger sets, like where the cabin is, for example, or they build a fire tower, like all was kind of all the sets were built on location by our amazing production designer. Alex
You built
Schaller.
the fire tower. You built the fire tower.
Yes, I mean
wow.
not me, but they built it, led by
impressive.
Alex. Which is such an amazing work. And gave us so much because it's so much more inspiring to shoot on location and to be on a real location. We shot everything with natural light, so to be on real locations was amazing, and to have those sets built on location was amazing, not just because we could actually like move in and out and shoot everything we wanted, but also we were protected and we could be inside when light didn't feel good outside and vice versa. So yeah, most of the places were accessible, sort to say. I don't know if production would necessarily describe them that way, but they were accessible, and then a few places were not at all, and then for those things we would be really reduced.
I really want to talk about lighting. Since this movie's come out, I've heard many people reference Terrence Malick and Days of Heaven and things like that. And Days of Heaven, of course, famously shot for tons and tons of time only at like magic hour, and it was very, very difficult for them to pull this off. Granted, you're using an Alexa 35, which has an incredible dynamic range and things like that, and you've got all of the modern production capabilities, but on a small budget and everything else, how do you make a movie like this happen in 30 days, especially from a lighting perspective? Because we were talking about enhancing and modifying available light. So many people I talk to who really don't understand anything that has to do with cinematography. They're just an audience goer, someone who enjoys movies. They seem to think that when you just show up, that you're just capturing what was there on the moment, and that there isn't all of this extra craft that goes on to it. Can you explain a little bit about your process specifically for this movie, about how when you show up on set, it's like, it's not just the world isn't your oyster. You have to actually make this engaging and incredible. How do you go about doing this, and how do you do it so quickly?
Well, very good question, with lots of possible answers, but I feel like it is a lot of planning. I feel like when you're relying on natural light, you definitely need to be at the right place at the right time. And this is always tricky because there's so much that is involved in planning a shooting schedule that it's not just lights. You have so many other aspects to it too. So trying to have that into consideration too while doing the schedule is a lot of work and commitment from all possible departments. It's not just like me and my department. So everybody had to really be on board of that. I don't know how many versions of the shooting schedule we did for a lot of reasons, but also because of lighting. So I was really involved with the AD from day one, with production to make sure that was possible and that was a reality somehow. We were really like helped by the fact that, again, as I said, like everything is it's real locations, sets built on location. I had a really close relationship with Alex, the production designer, to place those sets. Like you're going to build a cabin, so you have the privilege to build it the way you want and to orientate it the way you want. So it's a lot of studies of what the sun is doing, what the sun is doing throughout your shoot and how it's going to change, and where to place the cabin in a way that's helped, in a way where to place the windows and which types of windows, and how that's going to change from week 1 to week 7, because the light changes too. So you need to have all that in mind. That is kind of tricky because it's different from just like putting a light outside, for example, that you can do at nighttime, daytime, or any time of the day. So a lot goes into that planning in advance. And then for practical lighting, it's also a big conversation with our department to make sure you have not only fixtures that work, like candles that work visually, and oil lamps or gas lamps and campfires that work visually, but that they are also good lighting sources that give you enough light to expose, but also are good quality lighting in a way that gives you what you want. And then how can we, for example, like a lot of the scenes in the cabin are just like him, Joe Edgerton's character and Felicity Jones' characters around the table with a lot of candles. And we really wanted those moments to, first of all, be, I mean, again, all real fire, and we didn't want to like bring in LEDs, whatever, but we wanted to avoid like multiple shadows, for example, that you have from a lot of candles together, and that's not necessarily pleasant on faces.
Not at all.
But yeah, but we wanted that feeling. We wanted the flicker to be correct. We wanted the temperature to be correct. We wanted them to feel they're around fire. So we kind of had, for example, one thing that we would call the 1920s sky panel, which was roughly the same size of an S60 sky panel that it's LED lighting that Ari does. That it was just like a reflective surface that we would put a lot of candles inside, sometimes double wicks or triple wicks even, that we could just put a diffusion in front of it. So it would be a single sourced candle light diffused with a more pleasant light for their faces, but using real fire, real candles. So the color temperature was real and accurate. The flickering was all real, but kind of in a softer way. So there is a lot of like those tricks, and then finding out, okay, what's the time of the day to shoot inside the cabin that we're gonna make sure that it's light continuity inside, that the sun is not getting in here for 20 minutes of that scene and then out of it for the rest of the scene, and it's not too dark, too bright, and what is going to be the background. So there's so much planning that goes into it. And then again, how then you create contrast, which windows to close to create that contrast, of which windows to open, and so it's a lot of preparation that involves all departments, and everybody really needs to be on board.
How long did you have to test to prepare for this movie? Did you get to do a lot of lighting tests, and is that where the 1920s sky panel comes from?
We didn't like test a lot of the lightings. Like we tested lenses to choose the lenses we were going to use. We did have a close collaboration with like Alex and her role department to test those fixtures to light up like a oil lamp or a gas lamp and see if that worked and for how long it would work, and candles, etc. But not necessarily like on set. Like I've been shooting more and more with natural light and practical lighting and real candles. I did like things before with fire and candles that I've been developing like ways around it through the years. So the 1920s sky panel is an evolution of something I used in the past, so, and always like bringing those ideas to like I brought something I used before to Kevin Cook and our gaffer, and Ryan Fritz, our key grip on this movie. And they enhance that basically, like, okay, this is what I used in the past. What can we do this time and better? And they did a better version of that. So it's a bit of like also bringing things that you tried in the past and bringing that to your crew and see what they can bring that from their experience too and make it better. And Kevin was like, okay, it's not often that you're gonna have a gaffer that is gonna be excited about not using lights, like, because they're gonna be usually like, oh, what if we bring this LED here? It's gonna replicate fire perfectly. Don't worry, we can put on the fire mode, whatever. And you're just like, yes, but this is not what we want. And Kevin was the opposite of that. He was so excited about it, and he was like really helping me with like those rigs and the fire. He would be often like right next to the guy while we were shooting like campfire scenes, for example. He would be right next to the SFX person that was handling the fire with a monitor with like the false color on to know when the level was dropping or increasing, to kind of tell the SFX guy, okay, we need more fire, we need less fire, like. So it really was amazing to have a crew that embraced all that was doing it, prepping and doing it on set with me.
Yeah, getting that buy-in's got to, it's got to happen at the top. It's got to happen with everyone above the line, because the way that you're shooting and the way that you're doing this is just, I can't stress to the people who don't spend time on sets, who might be listening to this, is just so not traditional. Everything that you're doing is kind of like breaking the rules here. I mean, there's a way that you could have made this movie all on stages with tons of light, and you didn't do any of that. You guys kept it real. I mean, like really real, on location real, and using oil lamps, gas lamps, candles, and figuring out ways to get enough oomph, to get enough, foot candles out of that to then get an exposure. How did the cast work with this? Because it's like, when you're not lighting, I mean, you're also augmenting and adjusting then based on the sun. So, and you're only getting these certain windows of time that you can really get done what you need to get done. How does that process work when you've got natural light, when you've got, existing light coming in the environment, and you've got a window of like, okay, we've got about 40 minutes between here and there to make this work. everyone's got to sign off on this. Everyone's got to realize that if you don't get this done, your day's not going to get made and you're going to go behind schedule. So how does that come together?
Well, yeah, first of all, we had like an amazing cast that was super up for it, and Clint, the director, that was also up for it and was really wanting to do it that way. And I feel like that comes a lot from. We shot Jockey, the movie we did before this one, Clint's first movie, with a really reduced crew. It was basically like a crew of 10 people done by like $300,000. So it was a really small movie that most of these conditions back on Jockey were just inherited by the nature of it. You know, like we didn't have money for lights. We didn't have a crew necessarily to do a lot of things that would normally be done. But while this is really challenging, we realize how much magic we got out of that. You know, how much freedom the actors could have. They could move around without worrying about like a C-stand or a light or a mark, and how much for us to be able to like just move the camera around and follow them, and to not wait between setups to do a reverse, for example, to send the actors back to the trailers and relight the scene, that we could just like keep shooting the scene and everybody would stay in the mood and keep on character, and how much magic we would get from that. That felt so good that when we were talking about doing Train Dreams, we're okay, from all the things that we don't like about Jockey, that we hate, that we don't want to like make the same mistakes, this is one of the things that we actually loved about it, that we wanted to find a way to do on this movie. But it's hard to replicate that on a period movie that you need 100 people crew and trucks and etc. So it was a lot about having those conversations in advance to make sure we had that small core, that it felt like even though you had all those trucks and everybody behind, feet and feet away, you could turn the camera around, and that would give the actors freedom. And I feel like in the end that it's also very magical to them in terms of like, they're not pretending they are having dinner in a wood in the cabin in like in the middle of nowhere with candle lights, but there's like LED lights around them and C-stands and a lot of people around, you know, like it is really intimate, and they could actually inhabit those spaces like they were. So I feel like it is kind of fascinating for them in a way to be able to actually just have the camera as the weird element there in a way. Everything else there is practical. Is they can move around. They have the freedom. They don't need to worry about a mark or to hit a spot that they are not necessarily in focus or out of the light. You know, like all those things that like when you have that freedom. It's just like you get so much magic out of that in a way. So I feel like in general is something that they not only are on board with, but they enjoy. And we would have, I mean, I remember one example, like there's this scene with Joe and Carrie, that they are in the balcony of the fire tower. And that was a really long scene, like a bunch of dialogue, and we were like, okay, we should maybe schedule that, like to have a little longer than we would normally have. It is supposed to be around sunset, but let's have more time to make sure we have like everything. And then we started shooting that around, I don't know, like 3 p.m. or something, or even earlier. And after like 2 takes, we were okay, this doesn't feel right. No one was feeling it. You know, Clint was not feeling it. The actors were not feeling it, because they are in like this beautiful place, supposed to be looking out, supposed to be looking at sunset and like seeing something magical. And they go really deep in what they're talking. And they suddenly felt they were not like in the space to do that, you know. And we decided like, okay, should we just wait then? Should we just like wait for an hour here and then come back and shoot when we're supposed to? That's gonna mean that we're gonna have less takes. Or is everybody happy with that? Everybody, I don't know, if we're fine. I feel like we have it. We just need to be at the right place at the right time. So we waited. That makes obviously producers nervous, and everybody gets
Sure.
a bit like. But at that point in the shoot, we've been like, that was like kind of in the second half of the shoot. Everybody was already more comfortable about the fact that we could pull things off. Like when you are in the right space at the right time, and you keep the mood, you just go for it. You don't. It's not a long shoot to shoot a scene when you just shoot it. You don't need to worry about like relighting for a reverse, whatever. So yeah, we just waited and we went back to shoot it like an hour before sunset or something like that, and we shot it. And each one of them had like 2 or 3 takes, and it was perfect. The whole magic that they were not getting before, even for them, they suddenly had it for those 2 takes. And I heard from actors saying that before. It's also amazing not to necessarily do 200 takes, because then you know that you're not saving anything. You're giving everything you have on those 2-3 takes, and that might be it. There's also something that like we didn't have a lot of time regardless for the movie. It's shot in 29 days, so we often had to shoot scenes in 2 hours. Doesn't matter of which time of the day they were. 2 hours is all you have to do the scene anyway. So it was all kind of like part of the process in a way.
Yeah, on such a short schedule, I got to imagine there's not too many times you can say, well, we're just going to walk away for an hour or take lunch early or do whatever it is.
Yeah, that was kind of the time. But because we were shooting so fast also when we were actually shooting, it's a lot of planning, and obviously like we were protected by being inside the cabin, for example, when light didn't feel good, and going outside or doing splits and like starting the day at 2 p.m. to go into the night and be protected of like the hours of the day we didn't want to be outside. But because of that whole approach, the smaller footprint, whatever, we were shooting so fast that there's a lot of extra stuff in the movie. We would be like, okay, we have this 20 minutes to spare here. We're not going to be just sitting. Let's shoot something else, like a little improv. Clint would often like just give directions like, okay, this is a moment. Let's just do like a cooking. There is this cooking scene in the movie where they're like cooking. It was not scripted. We just like had 20 minutes in between other things. Our department prepared a few of those foods and ingredients. And because they were so much in the headspace of the characters and what they're supposed to be feeling at that time of the story, they just talked about what they were feeling, and that ended up being a scene in the movie, and it's just like completely improvised. Yeah.
That little girl in the movie too is so cute. God, she's an incredible scene stealer.
It's actually 2 girls, twins. Yeah, because
really?
Especially shooting with kids, you can actually just shoot. I don't remember exactly. It depends on the country, on the state, but I feel like you can shoot for like 2 hours with them or something like that.
Very little.
You never know if they're gonna be in a good mood or not. So it's kind of common to go for twins, and then you have like 4 hours instead of 2, because then each would work for 2. So they were twins, and the funny thing is that they had such different personalities. Mm-hmm. So one was really up for everything and was like happy and running around. The other was like kind of not really engaging, which was kind of also like good for us in a way, because then you had like those 2 personalities within the same kid.
Yeah. You could swap out as needed.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about when you did augment lighting, because it's like it's impossible to make a feature length movie of any sort and have the amount of control that you really need to have with. I mean, especially I'm going to say like when you're at some point. There must have been some battery-powered lights, some generator-powered lights. There must have been some stuff that you're doing. Can you talk about shaping the large scenes and moving how you did it? Is it all in bounce? How do you go about making the large, establishing outdoor stuff?
I don't want to frustrate you, but there is only one scene basically in the movie that we use lights, which is the big fire, because we couldn't kind of like burn the forest down, and we wouldn't even if we couldn't. So I feel like that's the only scene that there is artificial lighting in a way, that it was really stressful, because I mean, when you have a movie that is all real fire, and you like seeing how a real fire behaves, not only on the flame itself, but like on people's faces and the color and the flickering. When suddenly you have one scene that you need to use artificial lighting, how you make that in a way that it feels as natural as everything else, and that doesn't pop, and the viewer is not like suddenly like paying attention to that. Is the last thing you want in such an important scene in the movie. So for the big fire, we had to use lights, and we just tested so much to try to find something that wouldn't pop. And it was amazing work done by Kevin, again, our gaffer, to find the right rig. We ended up using a rig that is used in music concerts, actually, like really large and tall rig. Trying to figure out like the right temperature. We had different color temperatures depending on the height of the fixtures to kind of replicate what flames would do. We also like made sure we like had enough elements to deliver to VFX later for them to substitute that, and then stuff, smoke and sparkles and everything, like in foreground fires. We went to a forest that was actually burned, so the trees were actually dead and burned, and ashes in the ground. So everything besides those features there was kind of real. And yeah, we just had to test a lot to make sure of that. And then everything else in the movie is like, even when he goes later for like the theater or whatever, it's just like practical lighting. We also had one fun thing was the drone lighting. There is a few moments in the movie that like the you have this kind of surreal lighting of the train that represents like the dreams like passing by, and we love the idea of like having that as an element throughout the dreams. So that was a light that we just put on a drone, and the drone is just flying around with that light. But that's basically it. We didn't augment anything for like the exteriors or even the interiors with the candles or anything like that. It was much more about like just opening some windows and closing windows and choosing the right time of the day, and
making sure your cast is near the window, because I mean there's scenes on the train, of course, too, like
Yeah.
that's all window light. That's
Totally,
impressive.
100%. And the whole lighting interaction is real too. Like even the ending was tricky too, because the plane scene, we couldn't have Joe on a plane for insurance reasons on those kind of planes. And then that was like, oh my God, what do we do? We don't want to shoot that on a green screen, on a stage and light it. It's going to feel so off from everything else in the movie. It's such a handcrafted movie, so real, so naturalistic. And then again, it's such an important scene, and being the end of the movie. The last thing you want is to feel like this is not real. So how we do that, and the way we shot it, it's like everything is actual real in a way that like our department built just a cockpit of a plane, put that on a gimbal with SFX department that would turn in all possible axes, and that was elevated. So everything you've seen, so we rigged the cameras as we could actually rig that on a plane, so you don't have like an impossible shot. And everything you see behind them is the actual sky, because the thing is rotating, and what you're seeing is the actual clouds and the sky behind them. And the whole lighting interaction is real because that thing is rotating. So that's actually the sun just rotating as the thing rotates, and up and down and to the sides. And it's just natural light, even though, and the background is real, even though that plane is not flying, So it was just always trying to find ways to do things that we wouldn't have to not commit with that visual rule for us in a way. Which was always fun to do too. It's challenging, but when you find those solutions, that was the amazing thing. The shot was ready. After we shot it, even though it is not, then you need to go to VFX with a green screen. What they did is like a paint out of a tree or something like that that wasn't shot, and then the plane actually flying, the shots looking out on the plane are just cameras rigged to the plane itself.
That's awesome. That's such a interesting sequence. I just assumed you actually did it practically, that he went up in a and then
that was the idea, but he couldn't because of insurance. And he often says that he was like, he didn't want to be the guy saying, I don't want to go. But then he was kind of happy that the insurance said no. But I'm sure he would have gone for it if it wasn't insurance. So it's always those curveballs that you're like, oh my god, really? Like he can't go on the plane. So what do we do? And
Wow. And you found a gimbal too that you could do this with, or what, did it all have to be built from
no,
scratch?
it was built from scratch. From that fact, I call it gimbal, but it's not really a gimbal. It was just like a structure that was like a bunch of them, like just turning the things in all possible accents, and us screaming now left and down and up and nose down and nose up. But then it's amazing because even for the actors, they could feel everything that was happening. You know, like when they're supposed to be going down or up, everything was kind of real.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a real A+ crew in your gaffer and key grip and SFX
Yes.
people, because this is
Yes.
like
Yeah,
also,
and the focus puller, because shooting like that with like real fire and candles, like often you are wide open,
wide
and
open. Yeah.
improvisation, no marks. We never had a mark in the movie, and we never lost one take for focus. You know, he was always sharp, you know, in both metaphorical and in a practical way, and had the sensibility also to know where to go and the
And
speed, etc.
we haven't talked at all of that. A lot of this movie's handheld. There's a lot of handheld work in this too. So
yes.
not only is your AC then a rock star for keeping it all sharp when you're shooting wide open or close to it, also, and the actors have no marks, but you yourself too then become another
Exactly,
variable in all this.
another variable. And it's amazing to have someone like I had with Nick Kelly in the focus puller, that because you trust your focus puller that much, you're not afraid of moving the camera. You're not afraid of, like, if something is happening and you're already too close, but like there's that inch more that you want to go to feel something different. You're not scared about doing that because you're not worried that you're gonna miss it for focus. You know, so it's amazing to when you're doing a lot of handheld and a lot of improvisations. It's amazing to know that someone have your back there, and you're not gonna like lose an amazing take because you lost focus.
To me, it sounds like this project, the odds were really stacked against you for you to be able to pull this off, because using a lot of existing light, using a lot of natural light, using all of these extra sorts of things usually adds time. So, but good prep work, good scheduling, good AD crew basically enabled you to pull off something which ordinarily most traditional Hollywood productions would be saying like, oh, well, we're gonna have to budget all of this time to go over. We're gonna have to budget reshoots.
Yeah.
What time of year did you shoot this? What month or
We
months
shot,
was this?
I think it was like April, May, something like that. We did one pre-shoot day to get the snow. Like, so all the scenes that you see the snow are basically shot in one afternoon that we went up in the mountains during prep, just to make sure we had that, to get kind of the different seasons feeling to it. But yeah, everything was like shot in 29 days between April and May, something like that.
Fantastic. During that fire sequence, there is sort of like a step printing, almost sort of like staggering sort of look in a few moments, if my memory serves here. Was that something that was a creative decision after the fact, adjusting the footage that you shot, or was it always like these few moments here are going to really stand out? We're going to make it a little bit surreal. We're going to make it, feel a little bit different from the rest of the movie.
We really wanted basically you see that big fire through 2 points of view, right? You see it first through Joe Edgerton's character's Robert, which is really real. It's him experiencing that fire. And then later in the movie, you see that through her perspective, Felicity Jones' character perspective, where he's kind of like watching it almost like a dream. You're not really sure, is he dreaming? Is he like having a vision? What is that exactly? And we really wanted to differentiate those two moments. We wanted one to feel really raw and real and grounded, and the other one to feel dreamy and surreal. And I remember I was watching Chungking Express, Wong Kar-wai movie, and that opening sequence is basically that. They shot with like a lower frame rate, with a open shutter, in a way, a wider shutter. And when I saw that, I was okay, that's it, like that's how we should
Differentiate.
shoot that scene through her perspective. And I brought that to Clint, and he loved it, and he was like, oh yeah, that's it. I didn't know exactly how to express it, but that was exactly what I was imagining. and then we shot it that way. So that scene is basically shot at like 4 or 6 frames per second with a 3.56 shutter, and really staggering, which was also challenging, because then that meant that we couldn't shoot it the same way we shot his part of the scene, because we had to use artificial lighting for his scene, and that would be really tricky for VFX because of the blurred image. How do you take those fixtures and erase them on the blurriness that kind of like goes on top of actors, whatever, and then change that for a blurred fire? So that would have been so complicated, and we were unsure about the result. So for that specific scene, we actually went to a volume stage just to shoot her part of it around a volume stage in Seattle. And that's the only thing we shot on stage, actually, which is a version of a stage, right? A volume stage is that, for whoever doesn't know, it's basically you surround yourself by screens, LEDs, that all those images are projected that in a way. So everything that you see, it's real, and that reacts to the camera in a way that when you move the camera, that's moving to, and the whole lighting interaction is real, because what we had was basically images of like a forest on fire on those screens, and we would just shoot with Felicity on that with the shutter, so everything would actually be on camera already. Like after we shot it, we didn't have to do much VFX on top of it, because the image was blurred already. It was a forest burning behind her. She was just like running around that volume stage.
It integrates seamlessly, and I really think that is an excellent use of the virtual stage technology. I think that so many people are planning virtual stage production to be like the centerpiece of their production, but I think it's super effective when it becomes like a pickup or a reshoot or a portion of something that you couldn't otherwise get. Now you can get two people in the same space, which is amazing. So
and for us, because we had that blurred image, you could not tell, because it is blurry. It's impressionistic in a way. So it felt really real, like watching the footage.
Yeah. So the sort of slow shutter you were saying, like a 350-degree shutter that you're using for these sequences, this isn't the only place in the movie, though, where you did shutter effects. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the staccato, the motion blur that you get from different shutter angles, and how you deployed them in Train Dreams?
Yeah, we went kind of all over with shutter angles in the movie. I feel like I was just talking about like that specific scene where we went like with a really open shutter angle to get the blurred image with a slower frame rate, but we also did a lot of the opposite. So we were shooting with like really like I don't know, like 45 angle shutter, 22 even, depending on the scene, to contrast that, but also to have like a more kind of the feeling that we have in real life somehow, in a way that like images during the day when you have enough light feels sharper, and then when you are doing the night, everything feels a bit more blurred, like how the human eye behaves in a way, with like different frame rates, or to say. So we did a lot of that. So most of the scenes, the daytime scenes, have like a 45-degree shutter, a 22-degree shutter, or a 90-degree shutter, and then everything at night would usually have like the usual shutter, like a 180 or similar to that. And that came also because the whole motif behind the movie was that we wanted the movie to feel like memories, and we went to still images for that, in a way. Like we've landed on that metaphor about like finding the box of pictures, and you're trying to figure out whose life that person had, in a way. Like what was it like to be that person, whatever, through those pictures. And we really like the aspect ratio, everything came true from that, right? Like the whole visual motive came from still images and still photography in a way. And we love the fact that in still photography, shutter angles are actually used all the time differently to enhance something, to have a really sharp image or to have a more blurred image. And we wanted to kind of have that same effect with the movie. You know, sometimes there's a really sharp image, there is no blur, and sometimes it is really blurred, like that dreamy sequence. So it was also a way to like bring that photographic language to the movie.
Yeah, I really, yeah, I think it's interesting, like a box of old photographs and trying to, piece out these different portions of the movie here that you're describing. It's really interesting. Whose idea for the look of this movie? You take credit for it if it's you, but between you and Clint, when you're visualizing this movie after you've read the script and everything else, how do you come to this is the right decision? This is the only decision of the way that we could make this movie. Of all the options that you have, how do you get to this choice?
Well, it is a constant conversation between Clint and I. We were kind of having all these discussions on, like, I remember like reading. I was lucky to read the script long before we shot it, because I had collaborated with Clint before, and we've been talking about what to do. So when he started adapting it, he was sending me his first draft already. So I had the time to actually kind of absorb the story before thinking about what to do, and and how to solve the problems and how to shoot it. So I feel like it's always good when you can do that, because all the choices, all my technical choices come from that place in a way. How to frame it, what aspect ratio to choose, all came through that feeling that when I was reading the script, I was like always feeling, okay, this feels like memories, but memories in an organic way. It doesn't feel like it's a journalist telling the story of that person. It feels like it's someone remembering who that person was, and those memories are inaccurate. Like there's a line in the movie that he's like saying, he was like 6 or 7 years old. Like the way like memories are. Like you're not really sure, and they are out of order. And it was always like really clear for me that on the beautiful script that Clint and Greg wrote, and we're just always trying to find like, okay, how to translate that into images in a way. And that's where we landed on that metaphor of the pictures and the boxes and the aspect ratio and the shutter angle. All comes from like an initial idea that comes from the story itself. And I always say that, like, because I don't come from a photography background. I learned photography because I love movies, and I realized I wanted to do that. And then I went to film school, and I realized cinematography was the part of the industry I liked the most, and that's what I wanted to do. But it's always hard for me to think about any of those choices if there's not a reason behind it. Like if I don't know the emotions that I'm supposed to be helping the audience to get, or that kind of stuff. So it's always a really close collaboration with the director to understand what they want, and what we're supposed to be feeling with the script. And so it's really a lot of talks to land on those conversations. And then what I like to do is like create those rules that you suddenly, okay, we have those visual rules, depending on like when the scene is happening, and what age the character is, or what moment of life the character is. And if it's like on this movie, because it was a lot about memories, was always like, is this a good memory? Is this a sweet memory for him? Let's make that look better. If it's a sweet memory, it's gonna be a blue hour, a sunset, whatever. If it's a bad memory, like the first time he sees the house, it's gonna be a harsh sun, and it's gonna be the first time in the movie that it's like a really top light, and everything feels kind of uglier in a way. So it's always about like finding those rules in advance to be able to then create your choices, your technical choices in a way.
There's a shot in this movie where it looks like the camera is mounted to a tree that's being felled and it's falling,
Yeah,
falling away. Is that practical? And did you put an
that's
expensive camera mounted
that.
to a tree and drop it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's 100% practical. Ryan, our key grip, did an amazing job rigging the camera, but because we were unsure about what was going to happen, right? Like you never know what's going to happen to the camera. But we really wanted the shot. We wanted nature to feel like a character in the movie, to have a voice, and to shoot nature like we would be shooting a character. So having nature's point of view in a way was important. And we really wanted the shot, but we couldn't spare an Alexa 35, like with the budget we had and with the time we had, we couldn't like suddenly not have a camera and wait 2 days for a camera to get to the middle of nowhere and those kind of things. So we landed on using a cheaper camera and a smaller camera. We shot that one shot with the Komodo, which was amazing because it was much smaller, was easier to rig, and delivered also an amazing image by being like, I don't know, like 10% of the price of the Alexa 35. So if anything would go wrong, it would be fine, in a way. But nothing went wrong. The camera survived, and we got the shot.
Yeah, and it's a great shot. It's really effective. What I think is particularly interesting about this movie is that it's really not plot driven, and it spans a large period of time. And I mean, the climax of the movie arguably takes place off camera. Like you don't see I'm not going to spoil it for anyone here who hasn't seen it, but it's like the cinematography has to do a lot of the heavy lifting for this movie. It has to, I mean, it really has to keep people engaged. I mean, the actors do a wonderful job of keeping people engaged, but when you're talking about a project like this, I mean, the work that you're doing and the work of your gaffer and your key grip and your first AC, you guys are carrying so much of what's going on because the movie is contemplative and it gives you sometimes long periods of time just to look at what is happening, playing out on the screen in front of you. And yes, there's some voiceover, and yes, you get to know a bit about the character and stuff, but ultimately, so much of it is observational. The audience is observing what's going on in this world and allowing the audience to make up their own mind. And most of that information is visual. It's what's being presented there. And universally, I have not heard a single person who told me they did not like the cinematography of Train Dreams, which is like there are people who've told me they weren't into the movie, but even all those people said it was so beautiful to look at for 90 minutes or 2 hours or whatever the running time was. Everyone has said that. So I hope that you are also feeling this real sense of accomplishment, because ultimately the work that you're doing there is this story. It is what's happening here. It's like quite often the visuals end up being a portion of the whole theatrical or the whole movie going experience for someone. But in this movie in particular, it's a massive portion of it. How were you conscious of this going in? Were you conscious of how much what you were doing was just going to be, the main storytelling device for a lot of the movie?
Well, first of all, thank you very much. That's very kind. I'm flattered, but not really. Like I always say that I was just not trying to be. Was trying not to be the one messing things up, because honestly, like, it was such a beautiful script, and knowing how good Clint is and like the cast we had, like every time he would tell me, okay, we have Joe Edgerton attached, we have Will Macy, Felicity Jones, Carrie Conn, and like. I was just like nervous because I was like, if things go wrong here, it's my fault. Everything is like the locations, the art department, the costumes, everything was so well made and beautiful, and everybody was so good in what they were doing that I feel maybe that was it. Like I was just being reactive to those things and trying to make sure I was capturing that the best possible way, because they were there. Like when you have such strong performances with like an actor that can do so much without even saying a word, or like when you have such an amazing location and a set that is built in a way that it tells so much about the character, you just need to make sure that you're there to capture that. Like all the space we had around the actors all the time, like a lot of head space and room around the headroom and around the actors, come from that a bit. Like that, how much those spaces were not only amazing but informative of what those characters are feeling, and vice versa, and how much they are all affected in the same way, and they affect each other. So I feel like all the choices were just like reactive choices to the amazing things we had. So yeah, not at all. I was just like nervous the whole time.
Well, job well done. I think that's a
That's
really good.
kind. Thank you.
I think it's a really good place for us to leave it. Is there a place online that people can follow you? Are you on any of the socials, the interwebs, the Instagrams? Is there a place that people can connect with you if you
Yeah,
are out
I'm
there?
on Instagram. It's Adolpho Veloso. It's with PH instead of an F. And yeah, just Instagram, nowhere else.
All
So if
right.
you find me anywhere else, it's not me.
All right, Adolfo. Thank you so much for being on the show. I can't wait to see what you do next.
My pleasure. Thanks for everything. That was lovely.
All right, that was Adolpho Veloso. Hey, thank you so much for being on the show. It was great chatting about train dreams. So, Ben, it is our shorthand time of the show. It's the time we talk about our pet obsessions. What is your pet obsession this week?
Well, as you know, I'm a giant sports fan. That's a joke.
Huge.
I don't
the
watch.
biggest.
I watch no sports. And so, like, literally yesterday, my wife told me who was in the Super Bowl. As we're recording this, it was the Super Bowl. Sunday was yesterday. My wife was like, "Oh, isn't it the Patriots versus the Seahawks or something?" And I'm like, first time hearing of it. And but she wanted our son to be able to participate in culture. So we had the Super Bowl on, and all three of us didn't watch it. I'll be honest, but I did pay attention to the Bad Bunny halftime show, which I thought was like some outrageously impressive piece of stage work. Just I don't know. I could talk about it for a long time, but one thing that really jumped out at me was an upcoming movie called The Adventures of Cliff Booth. Have you heard about this?
I have not.
So this is directed by David Fincher, shot by our good friend Eric Messerschmidt, written by Quentin Tarantino, and it is a sequel to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And the trailer dropped during the Super Bowl, or I should say the teaser trailer dropped during the Super Bowl. And I don't really have much more to say about it than the trailer looks awesome. It's David Fincher, for being someone who I feel like is like one of the most controlled. Sometimes you could accuse him of being on the cold side of a director. This looks like a wild action adventure. It looks like a worthy successor to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but it looks like it might have a lot more action than that movie had. And it's interesting that David Fincher is taking over from Quentin Tarantino. But they're obviously friends. It's I'm interested to see if they shot it on film, because Tarantino is obviously a freaking purist about that. And David Fincher was one of the first A-list directors to jump ship and start shooting at that time on the Thompson Grass Valley Viper camera for movies like Benjamin Button and Zodiac. So it'll be interesting to see how their sensibilities merge. And I feel like it would be fun to see Fincher embrace a movie that was more fun, more Fight Club, less The Killer. No shade to The Killer, but Fight Club is my favorite kind of Fincher movie. And anyway, check out the teaser. I think it looks awesome.
Nice. Interestingly, my short end this week is also a trailer. It's the trailer for Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die.
Seen it.
Which now I'm extremely jealous of. But, I knew that because right before we started recording, you said that you saw it. And I said, okay, wait, we shouldn't talk about it. We should talk about it on the show. So how did you get to see this movie that is not out yet?
Very, very special thing. They showed it at Regal in their Mystery Movie Monday a few weeks ago.
So you didn't know you were going to see it, but you did get to see it.
I did know, and here's how I knew.
Oh.
There's a couple of parents at my son's school, and one of them is the writer of Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die.
This is such an LA story right now. This is exactly like your kid just goes to school with the kid of this, Gore Verbinski movie that's coming in theaters.
This is, I always tell people this when I meet new parents. The first thing I do is whip out my phone and look them up on IMDb. Like, not 9 out of 10 parents in my kid's school are industry people. So I was talking to this kid's mom, and I was saying like, hey, do you ever go to Mystery Movie Monday? She's like, are you going tonight? I'm like, yeah. And I thought it was going to be a different film. And she's like, nope, it's Matt's film. And sure enough, it was Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. And that movie is zany. I really loved it. It is not for everyone.
I think it's interesting because I was just looking at a poster for it, and it immediately struck me as similar to the poster to Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I have to say that I felt like a little bit of the trailer was giving off sort of Everything Everywhere All at Once sort of vibes. And I think they may have intentionally been trying to sell it that way. And there's not too many movies I see trying to be sold like that. So I don't know, but it looks like a ride. It looks like a thing. Gore Verbinski hasn't had a movie in like 13, 14 years, something like that. And, of course, he's famous for the Ring and also Pirates of the Caribbean. But
Lone Ranger.
I'm a huge fan, actually, of the movie he won an Oscar for, which is Rango. I thought Rango was phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's a great animated movie. And his follow-up to that is this Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. And it comes out this week. So it comes out on February 13th. So
I'm not going to, I really enjoyed it. I would say, to bring up Fight Club again, it's probably the most subversive big budget movie I have seen come out of a studio since Fight Club.
Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die is?
It's deeply subversive.
Okay.
In a great way.
I can get down with that.
I think that if I have a criticism, it's that it's almost too much of a good thing because it just keeps going. It's got an amazing cast. Sam Rockwell is great. Juno Temple didn't recognize her. I thought she was amazing. Michael Pena. There's just such a great cast in it. And it's definitely a spicy meatball. It's got a lot going on in it. To compare it to Everything Everywhere All at Once, I can see places where it lines up. It's a very different kind of movie, but
it's a darker movie.
What I will say about Sam Rockwell is that guy doesn't go in halfway. That guy jumps both feet into every role he ever plays. I laughed out loud many times. Like I said, it is kind of subversive. There is kind of a criticism of our times that's going on in it. A lot. There's a lot of criticism of our nonstop cell phone culture. That's a big part of it. There's a criticism of AI culture, which I'm assuming this was written before AI took over the world anyway. It's crazy. And, for Angelinos, you'll be like, the norms on La Cienega isn't close to any of the places they go after that. But outside of that,
outside of LA, everyone else totally buys it, I'm sure.
I look forward to hearing what you have to say about it. Cause again, I don't think it's for everyone. But it was definitely for me, and I really enjoyed it. And I was able to tell the writer that immediately after seeing it, cause he was there that night.
Fun. All right. Well, what was the reaction of the other people in the theater? Was it overall well received?
I would say it was. It got a lot of big laughs. There was some stuff that I think tickled me that didn't tickle the rest of the audience exactly the same way. That doesn't mean anything. I cannot wait to see how it performs theatrically, because movies like this are kind of a tough sell, but it's so wackadoodle. It's so out there. It's so ripshit bonkers that I appreciate the giant risks that they're taking, not stuntman level risks, but I'm sure that there were stuntmen involved, but just, I don't know, the difficulty of taking on something like that. And the fact that this is what got Gore Verbinski to stop counting his bank account and go make another movie and really kind of, again, jump in with both feet. I think that, there's a part of me that would love to have seen the sub $10 million version of this movie, because it doesn't need to be expensive necessarily. The fact that it's got a big budget, to me means it has to make a lot of money back. And also, it looks very polished, but that's not a criticism, really. It just looks really polished. The cinematography is great, visual effects are great, but I enjoyed the cast, I enjoyed the camera work, I enjoyed the zany ass story. I hope it finds an audience.
Yeah, well, I got to say, I'm more excited now than before you and I had talked about it. And James Whittaker is the cinematographer. Oh, James Whittaker shot Patriot, which that should have come to my brain. Love Patriot, and I thought the work on Patriot was incredible. So yeah,
I thought you were going to say you've interviewed him. You interviewed him 7 times, and I'm like,
No, I have not. I have not interviewed him. So, but now I'm even more excited to see it.
Cool.
So anyway, fantastic. So Ben, that just about does it for this episode. Where can people find you if they want to get in touch?
Please find me at benrock.com, and you can even email me. There's like a little form and I really do get those emails, and I really read them. It's I'm just out here doing this stuff like everyone else. How about yourself, Ilya? Where can people find you?
They can find me at Hot Rod Cameras, hotrodcameras.com, or the Instagrams. I'm over there if you want to see a bunch of anti-ice posts. That's pretty much what I do. It's Instagram, so yeah. So
really? You like your water tepid? I don't get it.
Yeah,
anyway.
I know. It's pretty bad. Anyway, so Ben, who do we have to thank? Who made the show possible?
As always, our kick-ass predator, Alana Cody, with the producing and the editing. Oh my God, so much work. Can't thank her enough. We've got some cool interviews coming up thanks to her. We also got to thank Kays Alatracci, who composed every stitch of music that you hear on this entire podcast. Check out Kays' website, musicbykays.com. Hire Kays for your next soundtrack. Also, go watch Kays fix synthesizers at Kays Labs on YouTube. I've watched a few of them now.
And they get them all fixed. They're all fixed, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
All right. So, Ben, I'll take us out. Thanks for tuning in.
All right. This has been Cinepod, the cinematography podcast presented by Hot Rod Cameras. Find your next camera, lens, or accessory at hotrodcameras.com. Watch and subscribe to our show on YouTube or listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow and interact with us on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn. But not X. Don't do that. Thanks for tuning in.